I never told my new husband that I had $30 million. Not because I didn't trust him. At least, that's what I told myself. His name was Daniel, and when I married him, I genuinely believed I had finally found the kind of man who cared about me, not my money, not my house, and not the life I had quietly built after years of hard work. Daniel was 58. I was 53. We had met at a charity dinner neither of us had wanted to attend. He made me laugh that night. And after losing my first husband years earlier, I hadn't realized how much I missed laughing with someone. Daniel had told me he was a widower with one son. His son, Marcus, was 31. Daniel always described him as ambitious. I didn't think much of it. Until the day Daniel and I got married. It was a small ceremony. No expensive venue. No magazine photographers. No announcement about my wealth. Just a few friends, some family members, and the man I believed I loved standing beside me. After the ceremony, Daniel held my hand. He looked into my eyes and said, "I don't need anything from you. I just want us to have a peaceful life together." Those words stayed with me, because Daniel didn't know that I could have bought everything he had ever dreamed of. My $30 million wasn't sitting in one bank account. It was spread across investments, property, business interests, and accounts I had built over decades. I had learned one important lesson after my first marriage. Never let someone fall in love with your bank balance before they fall in love with you. So Daniel knew I was comfortable. He knew I owned a beautiful house. He knew I had investments. But he had no idea how much money I actually had. And I intended to keep it that way. For the first few weeks, everything seemed perfect. Daniel made coffee every morning. We took walks after dinner. We watched old movies. Sometimes we sat on the back porch for hours without saying anything. I started thinking maybe I had finally gotten lucky. Then, 5 days after our wedding, someone knocked on our front door. I was in the kitchen. Daniel was upstairs. When I opened the door, I saw a young man standing there in a dark suit. Marcus. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman holding a leather briefcase. She looked like a lawyer. Marcus smiled. Not warmly. Confidently. "Can we come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. The lawyer entered first. Marcus followed. Then he looked around the house as though he already owned it. "I think it's time we had a conversation," he said. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What kind of conversation? He looked directly at me. About my father's future. And then he placed a folder on my dining table. That was the moment I realized my secret might not stay a secret for much longer. Daniel came downstairs a few minutes later. The moment he saw Marcus and the lawyer sitting at our table, his face changed. "Marcus?" His son stood. "Congratulations, Dad." Daniel frowned. "What are you doing here?" Marcus glanced at me. Then he smiled. "We're here because we need to make sure everything is protected." "Protected from what?" Daniel asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, the lawyer opened her briefcase. "My name is Rebecca Cole," she said. "I'm representing Marcus in a matter concerning your estate planning and financial interests." Daniel looked confused. "Estate planning?" I stayed silent. Marcus leaned back. "Dad, you're married now. Things have changed." Daniel looked at him. "Nothing has changed. Everything has changed." Marcus pushed the folder toward him. "We need to discuss your will." Daniel didn't touch it. "I already have a will." "Exactly." Marcus looked at me again. "And that's the problem." I felt my heartbeat quicken. Daniel stood. "Watch what you're saying." Marcus laughed softly. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything." His eyes said something completely different. Rebecca opened the folder. "There are certain legal concerns whenever a person remarries later in life, particularly when substantial assets may be involved." I almost laughed. Substantial assets. If she only knew. But Marcus didn't know either. Or at least I thought he didn't. Rebecca continued. "We recommend that you establish a marital agreement immediately." Daniel looked at me. "I don't understand why this is necessary." Marcus answered for her. "Because, Dad, you don't know what you're getting into." The room went silent. Daniel stared at him. "Are you saying you don't trust my wife?" Marcus shrugged. "I'm saying I don't trust circumstances." Then he looked directly at me. "People can change when money is involved." I finally spoke. That's interesting. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you're the one who arrived at my house with a lawyer 5 days after my wedding. His smile disappeared. Daniel looked embarrassed. Marcus, you owe her an apology. His son stood. I'm trying to protect you. By threatening my wife? No. Marcus pointed toward the folder. By making sure she can't take everything if something happens to you. Daniel's expression hardened. Enough. Marcus picked up his coat. We'll talk again. Before leaving, he looked at me. Mrs. Carter, I hope you understand that my father has responsibilities. I smiled politely. So do I. He left. The lawyer followed him. The front door closed. Daniel stood in silence. Then he turned to me. I'm sorry. I walked toward him. You don't have to apologize for your son's behavior. I should have warned you. About what? Daniel looked down. Marcus has always been worried about money. That sentence stayed in my mind. That night, Daniel fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I walked into my office and opened the hidden drawer beneath my desk. Inside was a small black folder. My financial records. $30 million. I stared at the number. Then I remembered Marcus's words. People can change when money is involved. Maybe he was right, just not in the way he thought. The next morning, I received an email. It was from Rebecca Cole. The subject line said, Urgent financial disclosure request. I opened it. She wanted information about my assets, my properties, my investments, my business interests, my trusts, my inheritance. Everything. I read it twice. Then I called my own attorney. Her name was Evelyn. She had been handling my finances for years. Evelyn, I said, I need you to prepare something for me. What happened? My husband's son brought a lawyer to my house. There was a pause. Does he know about your assets? I don't think so. Then don't tell him yet. I leaned back. That's what I was thinking. Evelyn asked me to send her the documents. I did. That afternoon, Daniel came home early. He looked exhausted. Can we talk? Of course. He sat across from me. Marcus is upset. I noticed. He thinks you're hiding something. I looked at him carefully. Am I? Daniel hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than I expected. I don't know, he admitted. I stood. Daniel, when we married, did you marry me because you loved me? Yes. Then why are we discussing my money 5 days later? I didn't ask for your money. No. I looked into his eyes. But your son did. Daniel lowered his head. I'll handle it. I wanted to believe him. Then my phone rang. It was Evelyn. Turn on your television, she said. I did. A local business news channel was reporting on an investment company I owned. The company had just completed a major acquisition. The reporter mentioned its founder. My name. Daniel stared at the screen. Then he slowly turned toward me. You own that company? I didn't answer. The reporter continued. She mentioned several properties, then estimated my net worth. Daniel's face went completely pale. $30 million? I nodded. He stared at me as if he had never seen me before. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to know whether you loved me. He looked hurt. You tested me. I protected myself. Before Daniel could respond, his phone rang. Marcus. Daniel answered. Hello. I could hear Marcus shouting through the phone. Then Daniel's expression changed. He looked at me. Marcus knows. My stomach tightened. How? Daniel didn't answer. A few seconds later, there was a knock at the door. Marcus walked in. This time he wasn't smiling. He looked furious. You lied to my father. I stared at him. No. I simply didn't tell him everything. You have $30 million. Yes. And you married my father. I nodded. Yes. He laughed. So that's what this was. Daniel stepped between us. Marcus, stop. But Marcus wasn't listening. You knew exactly what you were doing. I looked at him calmly. Then why did you bring a lawyer before you even knew how much money I had? He froze. I continued. You were already trying to protect your inheritance. Marcus's face changed. And that's when I knew. He wasn't worried about his father. He was worried about what he might lose. Marcus demanded that Daniel sign a new agreement. He wanted restrictions placed on our finances. He wanted guarantees. He wanted control over what would happen if Daniel died. And for the first time, Daniel finally saw what I had been seeing. His son wasn't protecting him. He was protecting himself. Daniel stood. Leave. Marcus stared at him. Dad, leave my house. But I said leave. Marcus looked at me with pure anger. This isn't over. I smiled. It is. He didn't understand. Neither did Daniel. Until Evelyn arrived the next morning. She brought a folder. Daniel and I sat together. Evelyn placed the documents on the table. I've reviewed everything, she said. Your assets remain completely separate. Your existing trusts are protected. Your properties are protected. And your investments are protected. Daniel looked relieved. Then Evelyn handed him another document. This is for you. Daniel opened it. His eyes widened. It was a new estate plan. I had changed mine. Daniel looked at me. What is this? I want you to have security. He shook his head. I don't want your money. I know. I smiled. That's why I'm offering it. The new plan didn't give Daniel control over my fortune. It didn't give him access to my accounts. Instead, it created a trust that would provide for him for the rest of his life. But there was one condition. If Daniel ever divorced me because of pressure from his son, the trust would disappear. Daniel stared at me. You did this because of Marcus. No. I reached across the table and took his hand. I did this because I finally know who you are. He squeezed my hand. Then the doorbell rang. Marcus stood outside. But this time, he wasn't carrying a lawyer's briefcase. He looked nervous. Dad, can we talk? Daniel opened the door but didn't invite him inside. Marcus looked at me. I'm sorry. I said nothing. He continued. I thought you were trying to take everything from my father. I answered quietly. I was never after anything. He looked down. I know that now. Daniel crossed his arms. Then why did you bring a lawyer? Marcus swallowed. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing everything. Daniel stared at him. You almost lost me instead. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Daniel said, You are my son. But that doesn't mean you get to control my life. Marcus nodded. I understand. He walked away. I closed the door. Daniel turned toward me. You know, there's something strange about all of this. What? If you had told me about the 30 million before we married, I might have spent the rest of my life wondering whether you loved me. I smiled. And now? He took my hand. Now I know. I looked around our quiet home. 5 days after our wedding, my husband's son had arrived with a lawyer because he thought my money was the biggest secret in our marriage. He was wrong. The biggest secret wasn't the $30 million. It was the fact that I had already decided what mattered more than every dollar I owned. Trust. And sometimes, the best way to discover who truly loves you isn't to show them everything you have. It's to give them the chance to love you before they know what you have. And Daniel had done exactly that. That was worth more to me than $30 million ever could be.